The Nintendo Switch 2 first week is complete, and as we head into week 2 of this system, there's a lot of new information and records being broken or shattered, so we're going to talk about that, in addition to a big game update from a title that we've been tracking here on PlayerEssence for quite some time now, and now we have a bit of an update on what's going on with Castlevania as well, plus some other information. So let's go ahead and jump right into it here with Mr. Matt Piscatella over on Blue Sky. He talked about how the Nintendo Switch 2 broke a new record in the US. Here's what he had to say. Nintendo Switch 2 set an all-time launch week unit sales record for the video game hardware in the US, with over 1.1 million units sold during the week ending June 7, 2025. However, this does exclude the sales from the My Nintendo store, so keep that in mind, as Nintendo had ample stock of the Nintendo Switch 2s in the My Nintendo store. Now, it wasn't as much as they sent out to retailers, but it was still a number of units, so just remember that. So it was actually higher than 1.1 million. Now, the record was previously held by the PlayStation 4. We got some more information as well with the launch. 79% of US Nintendo Switch 2 buyers also purchased Mario Kart World, either physically or as part of the Mario Kart World Switch 2 hardware bundle. Now we also have the top 3 physical selling Nintendo Switch 2 games here in the US in units. Number 3 is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Nintendo Switch 2 edition, which I love to see that, and I'll talk briefly in just a bit on that. Cyberpunk 2077, which is definitely a huge win for having the physical third-party game on the cart and a AAA title. And number 1 was Mario Kart World, which is to be expected. That is the marquee big launch title that's going to move units. A lot of people don't understand this or don't know, because I've seen some interesting stuff people say about which launch game Nintendo should have had, and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe sold nearly 70 million units on the Nintendo Switch alone. If you include the Wii U version, it sold well over 70 million units, with 68 million plus on the Nintendo Switch and another 8 million plus on the Wii U. So obviously Mario Kart World was the right title to launch with the Nintendo Switch 2, as people are snapping up that game, whether it's in the bundle or separate physically, and also on the eShop. It's just number 1 pretty much all over the place when it comes down to it. Now, I briefly want to talk about The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I figured that this game could get a huge bump on the Nintendo Switch 2 because of how close it launched, the proximity of the system. Many people were talking about how they were going to wait to play The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom in hope of potentially getting a much improved version with better frame rate and all of that and enhanced features, and that's exactly what we got. Because if you play the game on the Nintendo Switch 2 and get the upgrade, for example, you're going to get the Zelda Notes app, which lets you share creations and get other people's creations in your game, in addition to having 60 frames per second, much better resolution. It just looks, runs, loads faster, and it's a significantly better game than it was on the Nintendo Switch 1, because in particular, this game, anytime you pull out Ultra Hand or anytime that you do too many different things all at once on screen, it can kind of bog down their frame rate at times. Now, if you just play the game normally, there's really no problem, and the game runs at 30 with some dips here and there, but there are some issues with Ultra Hand at times, depending on what's on screen and what you're doing. So having that now run at double the frame rate with pretty much no issues at all, also having that resolution significantly better, so playing it on your TV just looks so much better overall. I've played it myself on the Nintendo Switch 2, and it is spectacular. So if you're playing that for the first time, or if you waited, you're definitely in for a treat. So I thought that we could see Tears of the Kingdom do better, actually tack on a number of sales with the Nintendo Switch 2 version, and I think that's going to happen throughout the life of this whole generation with the Nintendo Switch 2. Also good to see that the top 3 selling games are all physical on cartridge overall, so that can once again entice developers to actually use that 64GB cartridge if they have the money to do that. But it's good to see a big AAA game like Cyberpunk sell as much as it's doing on the Nintendo Switch 2 so far, at least. Now remember, all of this is sourced and tracked through Circana retail tracking service, so keep that in mind. Unit hardware sales across all channels will be included as part of the full monthly reporting once we get that later. So awesome stuff overall. Obviously, Nintendo had a huge launch. The momentum has to continue on with Donkey Kong and other games, but everyone who wanted a Nintendo Switch 2 hasn't necessarily got one. I've seen some people try to say that online too as well, and I don't think so. There's a lot of people that are trying to buy it, and it's sold out in a lot of places. Now, there are some locations that have a Nintendo Switch 2, but there's a lot of locations that do not. So restocks need to come quick. You don't want to see completely sold out to where people can't go in there and buy one. So I want Nintendo to restock that quickly, and it does seem like restocks are coming, as I covered that in a previous video. So look out for that online and in store. But also look out for our Nintendo Switch 2 giveaway if you want to win one. So check out the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment below. Check out the link in the description over to the community page. Vote on there. Drop a comment there and enter in for a chance to win a Nintendo Switch 2. Now let's go ahead and jump into the next topic here, and that is what's happening with the new Castlevania game. This is a game that I've been covering now for like a year plus at this point when it comes to rumors and other things, and it looks like it's still happening, according to VGC writer Mr. Andy Robinson over on Twitter. So we heard about this Castlevania game, and we heard that it's going to be more of a AAA or bigger budget Castlevania game. It's not going to be more of a smaller thing like Konami's done, or like a remake or re-release of different Castlevania games. It's actually going to be a new big Castlevania game, apparently made by an internal team over at Konami. So here's what VGC had to say originally on it. The first of these titles will be a new Castlevania game, which sources described as a reimagining of the series currently in development internally at Konami in Japan with support from local external studios. Now, Andy Robinson over on Twitter replied to a question where someone asked, Andy, any idea what happened to the Castlevania project you've reported a few years ago? And Andy Robinson replied by saying, still coming, and we'll see when it actually does happen. But I would think that this was probably been in the works for a while now. That's launched to great success. We've also had multiple Castlevania collections that have launched to great success and a lot of money. So I absolutely see them kind of building Castlevania up. I think they had a plan to reboot Castlevania and bring it back starting from as far back as probably 2017 or 2018 or so when they decided to do the Castlevania Netflix. I think they wanted to bring out some of the older games, get those on modern platforms in collections, and then kind of top it off with the big new Castlevania game. So I still believe that it's coming as well. Now, I haven't had any sources or anybody tell me that personally, but I still believe in terms of what Andy Robinson has to say here, and based off of Konami's actions, that something is coming. And Andy Robinson's not the only one that's reported on this. There's been some other reports of a new Castlevania game, so keep that in mind, guys. So I do think something will be happening at some point here. So what do you guys think about a new Castlevania announcement, maybe sometime this year or next year? Let me know in the comment section below. But now we're going to move on to the next topic here, and I want to talk about the Nintendo Switch 2 eShop charts for June 14, 2025. And this is interesting because it gives us a look at what people are picking up and playing and what's doing well and what isn't on the Nintendo Switch 2 at launch. There's been a lot of talk about what games or lack thereof games or people are playing, and I found this to be very interesting because there is obviously a huge uptake of people buying games. There was a massive launch. So if nobody bought this system, you can maybe kind of disregard the eShop charts, because it's like, okay, nobody really bought the system, but millions upon millions of people have bought the system and are consistently buying it anytime stock does come in. So you have to kind of look at these eShop charts and say, okay, well, what's going on here? So starting off, it kind of mirrors what happens with the physical charts overall that we talked about with Matt Piscatella and Circana in this video. The top 3 games are Mario Kart World, Cyberpunk 2077, and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom upgrade pack. Those seem to be the games that people went out there and bought the most, were those 3 games, or got the most, or are playing the most overall. But we have some other stuff here, which is pretty cool to see. A game like Fantasy Life I, The Girl Who Steals Time. That is a great version on the Nintendo Switch 2 that you can play anywhere. That's probably the preferred version that people are going to end up playing over the course of time. So I do think that it's awesome to see that that game's doing so well. Deltarune is also doing really well too. That's number 5. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild upgrade pack. Obviously, Zelda, one of the best games of all time in my opinion with Breath of the Wild. Nintendo Switch 2 welcome tour. It should have been included in the package, but whatever. People are still checking it out for $10. Bravely Default. Good to see that. Square Enix. And I think that we're going to see more Square Enix support for a long time on the Nintendo Switch 2. No Man's Sky has that update, which is awesome. Free update, so people decided to snap that up. Street Fighter 6. Long history with Nintendo, so it's good to see Street Fighter 6 mainline big Street Fighter back on the Nintendo platform with Nintendo Switch 2. Split Fiction. fantastic game, Game of the Year candidate. That's also on there. Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, the actual Switch 2 edition for the full price, not just the upgrade pack. Rune Factory, Guardians of Azuma, Nintendo Switch 2 edition, which I'm playing right now, and I do enjoy the game. I think it's pretty good. Fast Fusion. And then at number 15 is The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild Nintendo Switch 2 edition. So kind of like I suspected, people are going to be buying Tears of the Kingdom a little bit more than Breath of the Wild because less people have it on the Nintendo Switch 1 at least, and then now more people are going to check it out on the Nintendo Switch 2. So very good to see that, and once again, very good to see Cyberpunk, even whether it's physical or it's digital. Cyberpunk is doing well. That can show third-party developers that you can bring your AAA games over, take the time, actually make a great version for the Nintendo Switch 2, and you could have great results if your game is really good. So I think that's going to really inspire other developers to do what CD Projekt Red did on the Nintendo Switch 2, as we're seeing a little bit with Borderlands 4 and 007 First Light both coming to Switch 2. So what do you guys think about the eShop charts here? I found it very fascinating. Let me know in the comment section below. But now we're going to move on to the next topic here, and that's for Amazon buyers, which that includes myself. And it looks like Amazon and Nintendo have patched things up, have made up, and are going to start working together again in business, because it has been a long time since we've seen Amazon be able to sell Nintendo first-party games, at least in the United States. So games like Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza and even new Amiibo were unavailable on Amazon beforehand. Neither side really commented or talked about this at all. We just didn't know what happened, so we don't really know. I'm guessing there was some issue with potential leaks. This is just a guess. But now, at this point, you can pre-order Donkey Kong Bonanza, Super Mario Party Jamboree, Nintendo Switch 2 Edition plus Jamboree TV, Kirby and the Forgotten Land, Nintendo Switch 2 Edition plus Star Cross Worlds, and there's going to be other stuff as well with the Amiibo, like Zelda, Sidon, and Jamie from Street Fighter. So it's crazy because they've actually had a couple of different times where they've went back and forth when it comes to the Wii U and 3DS era as well. So I'm guessing it has to do with something with maybe copies going missing or selling at underneath where they felt that they should sell. There's some type of business disagreement for this to happen 2 separate times back to back when it comes to the generations here. Well, more like it skipped a generation. I guess with the Nintendo Switch, it happened as well, kind of into that. So it's just been around. It's been a thing where it's been on and off. So it's definitely something to do with the amount of games being purchased and the sale price of those games and maybe the distribution. It's definitely something internal, but I'm not really sure what it is. But either way, that's good for me because I do like buying games on Amazon. That used to be my #1 place to go buy games because they would guarantee the delivery on the same day that it launched, and usually it was in the morning, at least where I'm at. So hopefully they can get back to that, but I'm not so sure because people bought games on Amazon and sometimes it would take longer or it wouldn't be there at the beginning of the day. So who knows what's going to happen. But either way, it's good to have your games being sold in more spots, especially a huge retailer like Amazon, a distributor. Amazon has so many facilities, so many people that buy, millions upon millions of people that buy video games on Amazon. So you definitely want to be on there if you can. So I'm glad that they did get those business dealings, whatever it was, straightened out so they can sell the games, because obviously a lot of big games are coming up for the Nintendo Switch 2. So what do you guys think about Amazon and Nintendo finally patching things up? Let me know in the comment section below. But speaking of patches, let's talk about The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom, and Breath of the Wild. They both got some patches and new versions for players to be able to download, but there really isn't too much in them, at least nothing that we can see overall. So The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild version 1.8.1 general editions, Portuguese Brazil text has been revised. Several other issues have been addressed to improve the gameplay experience. That's definitely good, fixing those silent issues that maybe nobody caught beforehand, or maybe some people did catch. Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, you got version 1.4.1. Just like Breath of the Wild, Portuguese Brazil text has been revised, and several other issues have been addressed to improve the gameplay experience. Now, I am going through just a little bit of the Tears of the Kingdom, and I'm really enjoying it. I've been spending a bit more time with the newer games like Rune Factory and Mario Kart World, but I will get back to Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom because I need to play them with that silkier, smooth frame rate, and of course get all the stuff with the Zelda Notes app. I think they're really good additions, and I feel that these two games are going to help sell the Nintendo Switch 2. They sold the Nintendo Switch 1, but I think they're going to also sell the Nintendo Switch 2 quite a bit, as we've seen from the eShop charts and even the physical game sales, Tears of the Kingdom being one of the top 3 there and being a top 15 title when it comes to the Switch 2 on the eShop. So yeah, these games are going to be around and people are going to pick them up. New users, people going back, upgrade packs, buying it for the first time. So very good overall when it comes to see Tears of the Kingdom Breath of the Wild. Still getting some stuff to make it even a bit better and address some things in the game. So what do you guys think about everything that we talked about here when it comes to Nintendo Switch 2? So much news, big information, new updates, big games. Let me know in the comment section below. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 RPG news and content right here. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you guys for the next one. Peace.